Hi, this is Carl with the Archaeology Review. This video was originally created for Nick Barksdale on his channel, The Study of Antiquity in the Middle Ages. It was my first ever attempt at doing a YouTube video, and I made it to help out Nick's channel while he was in the hospital. Sadly, Nick passed away last year, not long after the original version of this video was posted to his channel. Since I was working on a couple of other videos to follow up the Dendera Light, I decided to finish them, create my own YouTube channel, and include an edited version of the Dendera Light video since it relates somewhat to the Baghdad Battery, which is the topic of my next video. I have ideas for a few other videos that relate to fake, fraudulent, and fantastic archaeology, which I've been blogging about for over 15 years. I'm less interested in just debunking this sort of thing as I am diving into the stories that surround these sometimes crazy, sometimes believable notions of archaeology. If you'd like me to continue adding this sort of content to my channel, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe, since that will definitely motivate me. The Dendera Light. What is it, really? In the Temple of Hathor in Dendera, Egypt, are several panels with images of what appears to be a light bulb held by ancient Egyptians. Admittedly, the image does have the appearance of a light bulb, and it was probably Erich von Daniken that first suggested this is a light bulb, possibly in his 1996 book, The Eyes of the Sphinx. On page 172, he describes a panel on the north wall of Crypt 1C of the temple as having what can easily be imagined as a bulb with a socket and a wire leading to a junction box and an insulator, while a baboon with knives symbolizes the danger of electricity to the uninitiated. This may or may not be the first time one of the 5 or so panels showing this lotus snake bulb configuration was associated with light bulb, but much has been made of it since. And I have to admit, von Daniken is right. It doesn't take a lot of imagination to see what he describes. It looks like a couple of guys holding a big light bulb or a flashlight. Regardless of the imagination, logic and reason tell us that this cannot be a light bulb. The technology to power a light bulb wasn't invented until thousands of years later. Looking closer, we can see the individual elements that are mentioned even by von Daniken. The lotus flower, the snake, the jed pillar, the people, and the anthropomorphic figure of the baboon. And if we leave the rest to imagination and von Daniken, we probably see the light bulb as well. However, it is very interesting to note what von Daniken leaves out. The image he includes in his book is a sketch of the panel, very much like the one you see here. What he leaves out is contextually relevant, which is the rest of the panel, including the writing which describes the scene we're looking at. So rather than simply use our imaginations, we can just read what the ancient Egyptians had to say. Speaking the words of Harsomtus, the great god, who dwells in Dendera, who emerges out of the lotus flower as a living Ba, whose completeness is elevated by the Kamatju images of his Ka, whose Seshemu image is revered by the crew of the day barge, whose body is carried by the jed pillar, underneath his Seshemu image is the primal, and whose majesty is carried by the companions of his Ka. Gold, height 1 cubit. So as we can see, the Dendera light is not a light bulb at all, but a representation of Harsomtus, or Horus, who is emerging from the lotus flower. But look back at this line drawing of the panel, and think of the words again. Revered by the crew of the day barge. The human figures in the image that are sitting, kneeling, and standing are actually on the deck of a barge, a ship, the hull of which curls around and forms the lotus flower. And from this flower emerges Horus as the serpent, held up by the Jed pillar, a symbol of stability often associated with the creator god Ptah and with Osiris, the god of the afterlife. A Jed pillar is a representation of the spine of Osiris, and if you notice the sections and the shape, it actually has the appearance of the vertebrae of a human spine. But notice in the translation of the text I read, there are references to the Kamatju and Seshemu images. These were probably referring to actual statues of Harsomtus, Horus, which were stored in this very vault. The murals on the wall and their accompanying texts are descriptions and inventories for items stored here and instructions on their use. Oh, and what about our little monkey friend? He actually has the face of a toad and is a guardian demon. The text next to him reads, "Your name is perfect as Wepwe. Your face is that of a toad. I have slaughtered your enemies with the knife, and I will fall your opponent in the place of execution." So he's not a warning about electricity. The Jed pillar isn't an insulator, and the cable is a barge. Take a look at some other examples of ancient Egyptian barges and notice the shape along with the curled hull coalescing into a lotus. It seems pretty clear that Daniken wanted only to appeal to the mystery monger in us all. I have to admit, in my youth, I found this light bulb claim to be very credible, but I can't help but wonder if I might not have thought differently had someone walked me through the symbolism and the texts that we can actually read. We know this isn't a light bulb, not just because the technology didn't exist yet, but because the Egyptian priests and caretakers of the temple tell us what it really means. By the way, the translation I drew from is from a paper by Wolfgang Waitkus, The Birth of Harsomtus from the Blossom on the Significance and Function of Some Cult Objects in the Temple of Dendera. You can find it in a journal called the Studies in Ancient Egyptian Culture. I'll make sure there's a link to the paper through JSTOR in the description below. If you'd like to check out my blog, thearchaeologyreview.com or hotcupofjoe.net, those links are below. If you like this video and you want to see more, hit like and subscribe. That'll definitely motivate me to create some more. If you have some suggestions for topics to cover, be sure to leave a comment. Some topics I'm considering for the future are the Fuente Magna Bowl, ancient stonemasonry, and claims of Romans in the Americas. And I'll probably eventually get around to a video on the practice of artificial cranial modification. That's all for now, and I'll see you next time.